Part 1. Why you fear changing your life, even when you hate the one you're living. You say you want change, you say you're tired, you say you can't live like this anymore. But every time a real opportunity appears, you step back. Not dramatically, not loudly. You just don't move. And the most uncomfortable truth is this: you don't stop because you're weak. You stop because something familiar feels safer than something unknown, even when that familiar thing is destroying you. Here's the paradox most people never understand. You're not afraid of a new life. You're afraid of losing the old one, even if the old one suffocates you, even if you hate it, even if you complain about it every day. Because pain you already know feels controllable. Pain you don't know feels dangerous. The brain doesn't choose happiness, it chooses predictability. That's not a flaw, it's survival logic. Your nervous system is constantly asking one question: what do I know how to survive? Not, what will make me fulfilled? This is why people stay in jobs they hate, in relationships that drain them, in lives that feel empty, not because they don't want better, but because they know how to endure this. Example 1. The job you hate. A man wakes up every morning with a tight chest. He hates his job. He hates the feeling of wasting his potential. He fantasizes about quitting. But when a real chance appears, a new direction, a business idea, a career shift, his mind immediately responds: what if it doesn't work? What if I fail? What if I lose stability? So he stays, not because the job is good, but because it's known. The suffering is familiar, and familiarity feels safe. Example 2, a relationship that's already over. A woman knows her relationship is dead. There's no intimacy, no growth, no connection, but she stays. Why? Because loneliness in a known relationship feels less terrifying than loneliness alone. She tells herself, at least I know what to expect, and that sentence keeps her trapped for years. Here's the hard truth. Fear of change is not fear of the unknown. It's fear of losing your excuses. As long as you stay where you are, you can say, I had no choice. I couldn't leave. It wasn't the right time. Change removes that story. Once you leave, once you choose, once you move, you become responsible, and responsibility is heavier than pain. This is why the brain creates a powerful illusion. I'm not ready yet. It sounds reasonable, it sounds mature, but in most cases it's not true. You don't become ready before change. You become ready after you move. Readiness is not a state, it's a result. So, what's really happening? You're not stuck. You're attached. Attached to a version of life that hurts, because it doesn't ask you to redefine who you are. The real question you avoid, it's not, can I change my life? It's, who will I be if I do? Because change doesn't just replace circumstances, it replaces identity. And identity loss feels like death to the nervous system. That's why even misery can feel safer than freedom. Misery lets you stay the same. Freedom doesn't. In the next part, we'll go deeper into something even more uncomfortable: why suffering often feels safer than growth, and how the brain uses pain as protection, and most importantly, why this mechanism keeps intelligent, capable people stuck for decades. Part 2. Why suffering feels safer than growth, and how your brain uses pain as protection. Here is something uncomfortable to hear. For your brain, suffering can feel safer than growth, not because pain is good, but because pain is predictable. Growth is not. Most people believe they avoid change because they're afraid of failing. That's only half true. Much more often, they avoid change because success would force them to live without a familiar explanation for their pain. Pain gives structure. Pain gives meaning. Pain gives identity. When you suffer in a familiar way, your brain knows how much it hurts. When it hurts, what to expect tomorrow. Growth offers none of that. This is why people say things like, at least I know how bad it is now. That sentence sounds rational. It's not, it's survival logic. Example 1. financial struggle that becomes an identity. A person constantly struggles with money. They say they want abundance. They watch videos. They read books. They even try things. A little. But deep down, being the one who struggles has become part of who they are. They know how to live like this. They know how to complain about it. They know how to explain their limitations. Growth would take that away. Because if money improves, a new question appears. Why didn't I do this earlier? And that question is terrifying. So, the brain protects them by keeping them in the struggle, not because it hates them, but because it avoids identity collapse. Example 2, emotional pain as comfort. Some people live with constant emotional heaviness, anxiety, low-level sadness, a sense of being not enough. They don't like it, but they know it. And one day when things start feeling lighter, calmer, they feel uneasy because peace is unfamiliar. The nervous system asks, "Where's the danger?" So it recreates tension, overthinking, self-doubt, sabotage. This is why change often feels wrong at first. Not because it is wrong, but because your system hasn't learned it yet. Here's the crucial point. Your brain confuses familiar pain with safety and confuses unknown growth with threat. That's why willpower doesn't work. You can't force your nervous system into change by motivation alone, because motivation speaks to the mind. Fear lives in the body. When people say, "I know what I should do, but I just can't," they're not lying. They're describing a nervous system conflict. Why logic fails? You can logically understand. The relationship is unhealthy. The job is draining you. Your life feels misaligned and still not move because logic doesn't override survival. Survival always wins, unless safety is redefined. And here is where most motivational content lies to people. It says, just be brave, just take the leap, just trust yourself. That advice ignores biology. Change doesn't start with courage. It starts with regulating fear. Teaching your nervous system. This new direction won't kill me. Until that happens, every opportunity will feel like danger, and every familiar pain will feel like home. In the next part, we'll talk about one of the most hidden mechanisms of all, why you don't actually trust yourself anymore, and how that distrust quietly controls your decisions. This is where many people suddenly realize, oh, this explains everything. Part 3, why you stopped trusting yourself and how that quietly controls your entire life. At some point in life, most people lose trust in themselves. Not suddenly, not because of one failure, slowly, quietly. It usually starts like this. You make a decision that feels right, and it doesn't work out, or you want something, and you're told it's unrealistic, or you take a risk, and it costs you more than you expected, so you adapt. You tell yourself, I should be more careful. I need to be realistic. I shouldn't expect too much. And that sounds mature, responsible, adult. But what actually happens underneath is this. You stop trusting your inner signals. You stop trusting your desire, your intuition, your excitement, your inner yes. Because those things once led to pain, so you replace them with something else. Logic, advice, other people's opinions, safety calculations. And slowly, decision-making becomes external. You don't ask, what do I want? You ask, what makes sense? What's acceptable? What's safe? Example 1. You learned not to trust your ambition. Maybe once you wanted more money, more freedom, more meaning, and you tried, and something failed. People questioned you. Circumstances didn't support you. You felt exposed. So your brain made a note, desire is dangerous. From that moment on, ambition became something to manage, not follow. Now, when you think about changing your life, something inside you whispers, don't get carried away. That voice doesn't sound like fear. It sounds like wisdom, but it's actually protection. Example 2, you learned not to trust your feelings. Maybe you trusted your feelings once, you stayed, you left, you chose someone, you let someone go, and later you thought, I was wrong, so you decided, I can't trust how I feel. From that point on, you started disconnecting. You numb yourself. You overthink. You wait for certainty. But certainty never comes because certainty requires trust. This is the trap. You don't move because you don't trust yourself, and you don't trust yourself because you don't move. Over time, this creates a very specific inner state. You know what you should do, but you don't feel authorized to do it. You wait for permission, validation, perfect timing, guaranteed outcomes, none of which exist. And so life becomes something you analyze instead of live. Here's the most uncomfortable part. Most people think self-trust is about confidence. It's not. Self-trust is about relationship. You trust yourself when you listen, you respond. You don't abandon yourself when it's uncomfortable. But many people learned the opposite. They learned, if this feels scary, don't listen. If this feels intense, suppress it. If this feels risky, ignore it. So the inner voice grows quieter. Not because it disappeared, but because it stopped being heard. And here's the paradox. The more you ignore yourself, the less confident you feel. The less confident you feel, the more you ignore yourself. That's why people say, I don't know what I want anymore. It's not true. They know. They just don't trust what they know. Example 3, money and self-trust. A person wants to earn more. They have ideas. They feel potential. But every time they consider acting, their mind says, who are you to do this? What if you fail again? What if you embarrass yourself? So they don't act. And then they say, see, I knew I wasn't capable. But the truth is, they never tested capability. They tested obedience to fear. Self-trust doesn't disappear because you failed. It disappears because you stopped standing with yourself after failure. This is why advice doesn't help, why motivation fades, why inspiration doesn't last, because the core issue isn't action, it's self-abandonment. In the next part, we'll address the question people are most afraid of. What actually happens if you stop betraying yourself, and why that feels terrifying at first. This is where change becomes real. Part 4. Why being seen feels more terrifying than failure, and what actually happens when you stop betraying yourself. Most people believe they're afraid of failure. They're not. Failure is familiar. Failure is explainable. Failure keeps expectations low. What people are truly afraid of is being seen. Being seen means your intentions are visible, your desire is exposed, your choice is public, and once you're seen, you can't hide behind potential anymore. As long as you don't act, people can imagine your capability. Once you act, you become real, and reality can be judged. This is why people stay almost ready, almost starting, almost leaving, almost changing. Almost feels safe. Example 1, staying invisible feels safer than risking success. A woman knows she has something valuable to say. She thinks about starting a project, a channel, a business, but something stops her. Not the fear of failing, the fear of showing herself and still not being chosen. Because rejection after visibility hurts more than rejection in imagination. So she waits. She improves. She prepares. She learns. But she never fully shows up. Example 2, money and visibility. Many people say they want more money, but money brings visibility. Higher income often means being evaluated, being responsible, being perceived as capable. And deep down, some people don't feel safe with that identity. So they unconsciously sabotage opportunities that would put them in the spotlight. What actually changes when you stop self-betrayal? The moment you stop betraying yourself, life becomes sharper, not easier, not calmer, sharper. You start noticing where you're pretending, where you're hiding, where you're saying yes when you mean no, and that awareness is uncomfortable. This is why many people return to old patterns after brief moments of clarity, because clarity removes excuses, and excuses protect identity. The hidden cost of staying unseen. When you stay unseen long enough, something strange happens. You begin to feel invisible, even to yourself. You forget what your voice sounds like, what your preferences are, what you actually want. And then people say, I don't even know who I am anymore. Not because identity's gone, but because it hasn't been expressed in years. Here's the truth. Being seen is not about attention. It's about alignment. When your inner truth and outer life match, the nervous system relaxes, even if the situation is challenging. That's why some people live difficult lives and feel alive, while others live comfortable lives and feel empty. What self-trust really asks of you? It doesn't ask for bravery. It asks for consistency. Small acts of not abandoning yourself, speaking when it matters, leaving when it's honest, choosing when it's uncomfortable. Not dramatic moves, honest ones. In the final part, we'll answer the most important question. How do you actually start changing without forcing, overwhelming, or destroying your life, and what real sustainable change looks like? This is where answers appear. Part 5. How real change actually begins without forcing, burning everything down, or lying to yourself. Most people think change starts with a big decision. Quit the job, leave the relationship, move to another city, start over. That belief keeps them stuck. Because big decisions feel overwhelming, and overwhelming triggers fear. Real change never starts with a leap. It starts with ending self-betrayal in small, specific places. Here's the most important thing to understand. You don't change your life by becoming someone else. You change your life by stopping the quiet habits that disconnect you from yourself. Step 1. Stop negotiating with what you already know. Most people are not confused. They are avoiding confirmation. They already know what drains them, what feels wrong, what they keep postponing. But they keep asking the same questions, hoping for a different answer. Real change begins when you stop asking, is this really that bad? And start stating, this doesn't work for me anymore. No drama, no explanation, just honesty. Step 2, make one choice that aligns, even if it scares you. Not the biggest choice, the cleanest one. The one where you usually say yes but mean no. The one where you usually stay silent. The one where you usually postpone. Alignment builds trust. Trust reduces fear. Example: saying no to something you always tolerate. Speaking a truth you usually swallow. Taking one concrete step toward money, not planning forever. Small, real actions retrain the nervous system. They say, I can survive being honest. Step 3, redefine safety. Right now, your body associates safety with familiarity, even if familiarity hurts. You need to slowly teach it a new equation. Safety equals being in integrity with myself. That doesn't happen overnight. It happens through repetition. Each time you don't abandon yourself. Don't silence your desire. Don't choose comfort over truth. Your system learns, this is survivable, this is safe. Step 4, expect discomfort and don't misinterpret it. Discomfort does not mean you're doing something wrong, it means you're leaving autopilot. Most people quit here. They say, see, this feels wrong. But what they're feeling is unfamiliar regulation, not danger. Growth often feels quiet, not exciting, destabilizing, not inspiring, lonely, not validating. That's normal. You're exiting a role, not entering applause. Step 5, stop waiting for clarity before moving. Clarity comes after action, not before. You don't see the path and then walk it. You walk, and the path reveals itself. People who change don't have stronger motivation. They have a higher tolerance for uncertainty. They accept, I won't know everything, and I'll move anyway. The real shift. At some point, something subtle changes. You don't suddenly love your life, but you feel inside it again. You feel present, grounded, real, and that's when momentum appears. Not because life is perfect, but because it's yours. One final truth: you don't need to fix yourself. You were never broken. You learned to survive by disconnecting. And now, you're learning to live by reconnecting. If this series stayed with you until the end, it's not because it motivated you. It's because it named something you felt for a long time. Don't rush. Don't force. Don't perform change. Just stop betraying yourself in the small places. That's where real life begins.